In just 3 days' time, we'll play Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. Now, we only know one thing for certain. That is, Chelsea will bring their full squad. They might start, most probably, their starting 11. And in our case, we'll be resting, if not everybody, at least 9 or 10 players. Because we have the Europa League in 3 days. That is the most important game of our season. It's the most important game for the next 2-3 years. Because if we don't win this, then we all know the financial ramifications. We know how screwed we are as a club. So this game is not really important. But at the same time, it's a matter of pride. Because think about it. We still need momentum going into the Europa League final. Momentum does not work in such a way where, you can switch it on and off just as you like. We all know that from the past. When we've tried this before, when we've been saving ourselves for one competition, what happens is we get screwed in another competition. So, having said that, do we think the Premier League needs to be prioritized a little bit? I would say, as much as people wouldn't agree with this, I think we still need to start at least with 5, 6, even 7 senior starters. Why? Just because we need that momentum going. Not to risk them too much. So if we're losing around the 45th minute or the 60th minute, sub the main players off. But we need to play a few of the starters. You might say, you conserve them. You don't risk them much. But at the same time, we do need to get some momentum. Against West Ham, after playing 90 minutes in Bilbao, was the stupidest thing Amorim could do. Playing such senior players. The players that we had on the pitch, especially Lenny Yoro, who now has unfortunately got an injury. We don't know how long he's out for. Hopefully he's back for this game, but it's a big stretch. But we only want him for Wednesday because that's all that matters. And we just do not want to risk another injury. But at the same time, we should not have done that against West Ham. But against Chelsea, the game just before the Europa League final, we need some momentum going. So if it's 45 minutes, it's 45 minutes. We need a few of our senior players to get the minutes in their legs. Because if they don't get the minutes, then we don't get the momentum. And we do not get something solid to take over to the Europa League final. Going to the Europa League final on the back of 2 losses is probably one of the worst things that could happen. Why that is because we've always seen this in the past with Chelsea and us. When we need a win, we always mess up. Do you guys remember back in 2017-18 when we were pretty much top of the league, or we were joint top of the league? We were flying. The only loss we had till that point, till I think it was game 9, game 10, was against Huddersfield, and we drew against Stoke. Every other game we won. That was when we were winning 4-0 in every game. So we were high flying back then. Then we went to Stamford Bridge. We thought, okay, you know what? Chelsea is a decent team. Conte just won the league last season. But we should be beating them anyways. 1-0 loss. Alvaro Morata scores. And that from there on, the downfall of our season started. Even though we finished second, ultimately, we were nowhere close to the league title. And that was the game that started it. The same season, later on in that half, we had the FA Cup final. Again, another game everybody expected. United finished second place. They've been playing pretty decent. Chelsea have been underwhelming. What's going to happen next? 1-0 loss in the FA Cup final. Hazard scores a penalty. That's it. Take it all the way to 23-24. Last season, when we could have used a win at their place, that game was just chaos. If you guys watched that game, that was absolute chaos. Forget quality of football. The quality of football was down there. But in the first half, Gallagher scores. I think Caicedo scores out of nowhere. And then they have a 2-0 lead. Out of nowhere, with 3-2 up. Now you're thinking, we have scammed a win at the Bridge. Thank God. Now let's move on to the next game. But then, Cole Palmer. Cole Palmer comes up, makes it 3-3. Then they makes it 4-3. And then that's game. So all I'm saying is we have history of Chelsea messing it up when we need some confidence, when we need something. So do not put it past Chelsea to whack us 4 or 5. And even if, considering everything we've seen of Amorim, how he says, we need to heavily rotate. He talks a good game in press conferences. He talks like one of the best managers in the world when it comes to press conferences. But what's the one saying everybody says? Actions speak louder than words. So Amorim can say anything. He can gift you the world. But if he does not back it up with what he's doing on the pitch, then how can you trust him? So if he says that I'm going to rest all my big players, and before games we've seen that he says all this, but then against West Ham, he starts nearly 50% of our starters. Then what are you to say that he wouldn't mess up again this time, right? If he says all this in the past, then who's to say that he's not going to do it again? And even if I agree with it, it's going against his principles. And this is why, let me segue into Amorim slowly. Because why do I have a problem with Amorim? The thing is, it's fine messing up. We all make mistakes, right? We're humans, we make mistakes. That's completely fine. But if you are to trust a manager, especially a manager of Amorim's stature who hasn't coached in the Premier League, we're going to give two metrics to determine whether he's good or not, on the surface level at least. So number one, you got to give me results. Or more importantly, in number two, is give me performances that I can get behind. Maybe you're losing, just like Jurgen Klopp did with Liverpool in 2015, 2016. You give me performances where I can say, you know what? I see where this team is going. I see the vision. And I can see in certain games who are whacking teams 4-5-0. In certain games we're just losing 3-4-0. That's because of defensive frailties. That's 100% because of the quality of players. When it comes to management in-game, when it comes to tactical setup, when it comes into in-game decisions, you should be okay. And you should be doing it right on time. You shouldn't be saying, you know what, 1 month later, I made the change of bringing Mino into the 10 instead of the pivot and bringing Casemiro back into the team, even though I didn't trust him in the beginning. Or I brought in Zirkzee into the lineup 3 months late because I realized Højlund isn't good enough. And this brings me back to the initial point. Actions speak louder than words. What we see on the pitch is what we can judge Amorim of, not what he says. You know why? I would give this breathing period if Amorim was doing some different things on the pitch where we could see some patterns of play. What do we see on the pitch? All we see on the pitch is chaos. Is chaos any different to what we saw under Rangnick? Is chaos any different to what we saw under Ten Hag? Is chaos any different to what we saw under Ole, under Mourinho, under Van Gaal? So, and even David Moyes. So you're going back all the way to Sir Alex for the last time that you did not see chaos, where you saw continuous patterns of play. Now, some of you might say, then that's all up to the setup. That's all the way from the top to the bottom. You might be right. But at the same time, you know, when people say it's always the players, look at all the players that we have now. How many of them are the same players that Ole coached? You could say Bruno is, you could say Shaw is, Rashford is. And past this, you're kind of struggling to think who else would have been there. And out of these three, Shaw is injured always and he's on his way out very soon. Rashford isn't in the squad anymore. And Bruno's the last remaining survivor. And you could say occasionally Harry Maguire. So this means 2 players are from the All-Iran. And since then, people who say that Amorim doesn't have the players, I think most of us agree Ahmad is generational, that he is up there with some of the best right wingers in the world, right? We've seen what he does for our team. We should know and we should back the fact that Ahmad is one of the best right wingers in the world. Along with that, we have Lenny Yoro, who just shows that he's a demon, that he fights for the team, fights for the badge. And apart from fighting for the badge, this guy is technically insane. He can become an all-time defender if coached correctly, if everything goes right. Kobe Mainoo is one of the most technically secure midfielders I've seen in a while. And when I mean technically secure, he keeps the ball ticking. How many players can you even say that, you know, that's the case? Because most people rush it too fast. This guy's composure when it comes to big moments, when it comes to pressure situations is just insane. You think about Lyon, you think about Man City in the cup final. When he gets the ball in the box, this guy waits and slowly slots the ball in. Do you ever see Mino rushing the ball too much? No, you don't, because this guy's technical composure is insane. And that brings us back to other players that we have. We have Casemiro, who you might say he's not physically solid, but you look at the chance creations that he does, you look at him in the box when we need a goal, and you're telling me that he doesn't have physical presence. Even if in the midfield he gets run over, that's the job of the second midfielder, right? Whoever's beside Casemiro to mop up for him. But then when we play with the second midfielder, we had Bruno playing at the pivot with Casemiro, and that was working perfectly. But then what does Amorim do? He decides to be Tinker, man. He thinks, you know what, I'm going to change it up. And then that's when he introduces Ugarte. The first few games, Ugarte was okay. But then what happens after that is Ugarte shows his real colors. When he gets confidence, unfortunately, Ugarte tries to be better than he is. He tries to be Ronaldinho when he's not. The worst attribute he has is on the ball. Off the ball, Ugarte is actually solid, because when it comes to running stats, when it comes to clamping the ball, he's pretty solid. But when it comes to in-game decisions, when it comes to what can you do with the ball, how can you progress the ball, that's when he messes up. And then Ugarte is just lost. And then we lose the ball. Ball turnover happens, and then we lose the ball immediately, and then they probably score. Most often than not, they score. And then obviously, we have Joshua Zirkzee up front. And if we have Zirkzee up front, we just don't know how to use him. And if you think Zirkzee is bad, if you think he's one of the worst strikers that's ever played for our club, you don't understand how his profile works. So Zirkzee, first of all, he's not a striker in the normal sense. Think of him not as a Suarez. Don't think of him as a Harry Kane. Don't think of him as Victor Gyökeres. Think of him more in the mold of Bobby Firmino. In fact, I would say he is technically more elegant than Bobby Firmino, but the profile and the idea is the exact same as Bobby Firmino. Think back to what happened in that one Liverpool team. That Liverpool team is one of the best teams, the most coherent teams I've ever seen. And I myself would put that team up there with the Centurions. Even though they didn't win much, they're up there with the Centurions. And that's why they kept competing on the same level, very close to each other. So if we were to compare why that team worked so well, why they could win the Champions League, why they could win the Premier League, why they could compete at such a high level, do you think that it's just because of Salah, it's just because of Mane, it's because of Van Dijk? They're all important elements. But the person who linked that entire team together, who was the glue for that team, was Bobby Firmino. Because remember, Liverpool bought Jota to replace Bobby Firmino. But then for that one season, they saw that Jota wasn't cutting it. That they had to bring back Firmino into the team to see some level of consistency. And this is the same thing with Joshua Zirkzee. We see that the team struggles without Zirkzee. And this is considering the fact that in the 10s, we play the wrong profile for Joshua Zirkzee. Because Amorim wants a striker who's like Victor Gyökeres, who's just a physical demon, and that's it. So he does not care about the technical aspect. He does not care about keeping the ball on the floor. This is one thing we should realize, guys. Amorim does not want to keep the ball on the floor. You can tell me anything you like about Sporting. That entire team revolved around physicality. The more I see an Amorim team play, the more I understand that this is pushing closer towards your modern Premier League team than an actually aesthetically good team to watch. Remember when I said that we're trying to build into 2018-19 Liverpool? Yeah, I don't think so. As much as the similarities were there initially, the more I see Amorim play, he likes Patrick Dorgu, he likes Diogo Dalot. When you see players like this, first of all, at wing-back, you see that they don't have technical security. Now, that wouldn't be a bad thing for him. He wouldn't say no if they have technical security. But the thing is, he wants players who are just physical, when the priority should actually be the other way around. And he prioritizes the wrong players. He misprofiles the same players. And this is what concerns me. Even if we win the Europa League, I still want Amorim out, because he's shown me time and time again that when it comes to the crucial decision-making times, he does not know what to do. That you see on the sidelines that he has this blank face. When we're losing, it's not a case of, you know what, we'll get back into it. Where's the in-game tactical setup and tactical changes, tweaks to win us the game? Maybe you might tell me that the Lyon game was on Amorim, that he coached a masterclass. First of all, let's say this. When you're 2-0 up at home, you shouldn't be throwing a lead anyways. right? You should be managing that lead perfectly. In fact, you would argue you should be pushing for a third. Now, does that mean Garnacho does not miss chances? Does that mean Hoyland is just mentally absent? No, of course not. So there is partial blame on the players, there's partial blame on the manager. Only thing is, the blame on the manager is larger. We were 2-0 up, and then we threw the lead. We were losing the game 4-2. Okay? And at that point, individual brilliance takes over. That's when Casemiro gets the ball. Casemiro is in the box. He gets the penalty. Bruno scores the penalty. And then we go back. Casemiro, Maino, fluid ball. And then Maino scores again. Why? Because of his technical composure. It's not because Amorim coached him to be in that position. No, because Kobe Maino has always had this attacking instinct about him. He is the guy who pushes Maino into the pivot, by the way. We shouldn't be questioning Amorim, because how can a manager be wrong when these players are so bad? That's the argument everybody gives me. But two things can be right at the same time. The players can be bad, at the same time the manager can be bad. And in this case, the manager is throwing the game worse than anything. Because without this manager, let's say we had a better manager, we would be playing even with the same system. Why are Wolves succeeding? Don't tell me that Wolves have better players than us. They have Matheus Cunha. Apart from that, we have players. If we play them in the right spots, and if we play the right players in the right positions, we can see much better performances. What am I talking about? Well, in midfield, Casemiro, Bruno. Up front, when we had the choice, you might say that we have injuries now, but there was a time when we had Anthony available, when we had Zirkzee, Maino, Ahmad, Casemiro, Anthony, all these players available. And yet, have we ever seen all these players play in one team together? I.e., have we ever seen Ahmad, Zirkzee, Maino as a front three, Casemiro, Bruno behind them, Anthony at right wing back, and then, you could pitch whoever at left wing back, to be honest. And then in defense, Euro, De Ligt, Mazraoui. We never played this, did we? So when you say that such a team who technically would be insane and we could be dominating the ball, when this team didn't play, who are we to blame other than Amorim? Especially when in-game decision making is horrible from Amorim. He says one thing and then he does a different thing on the pitch. So I completely blame Amorim for this, even if the players aren't good enough. So simply put, from this Chelsea game, there's not much to say, right? All we need is get a few players in, get the momentum going. Even if it's a draw, brilliant. Take something to go into Tottenham. But does this mean we just out the players and then we keep playing the players till they're done? No, we don't. All the main players, especially Ahmad, Casemiro, whoever plays, bring them off at around like the 45th or the 60th minute, because why? The Europa League final is more important. But we need momentum. Chelsea is going to be fighting for that top 4 spot, because their final, funnily, is about a week later after ours. So they still have time. They can still afford to play their big players today. In our case, we cannot afford that. So it's really a mix. Do you want to get momentum or do you want to save the players? So that's the big idea. That's up to Amorim. So whatever he decides. But would I be against him playing a couple of first teamers? No, I wouldn't, because we can't just save and coddle them up all the way till the Europa League final. At the same time, his man management is also pretty poor. What do I mean by man management? I don't mean does a player love him or not. I mean, look at the injuries that we accumulate. Even if a player is recovering slowly, Amorim rushes him back. Matthias De Ligt is probably the best example. Even if he should have maybe started in the first place, but when De Ligt felt a pull, you should be managing that way better. Because he'd feel something much before he openly sits down. Either Amorim or his staff should be communicating with the players to understand what is happening around him. That's the only way we can get things done. Anyway, that is Chelsea against United. It's not a game that we're looking forward to necessarily, because it's just a passerby before the main event. So, yeah, what I'm predicting for this game would be maybe a 3-1 to Chelsea. And apart from that, all it is just for the Europa League final. Try to get some momentum if possible. And yeah, that's all. See you all in the next one.